Welcome to Contact Point, the podcast that brings together specialists from TTI and our supplier colleagues from Phoenix Contact with discussion, information, and insights on the newest technologies helping the world move to an all-electric society. And now, Contact Point.
Hello everybody and welcome to Phoenix Contact TTI's Contact Point podcast series. I'm your host, John Sandy from TTI, Supplier Marketing Manager, and today I have joining me Maria Schierscher. Welcome, and why don't you give our listeners a little bit of an overview of yourself and your background?
Yes, hi John. Thanks so much for having me. As you said, my name is Maria Schierscher. I have been with Phoenix Contact now, actually as of this Friday, we'll make it officially 13 years. And I've been responsible for the industrial tooling line since day one with Phoenix. Prior to Phoenix, I graduated from Shippensburg University with my undergrad in marketing and my graduate MBA from Shippensburg as well.
Well, congratulations on the 13-year anniversary, Maria. And I know that you have a fairly unique nickname inside of Phoenix Contact. Why don't you tell us about that?
My nickname is the Tool Fox, and where that comes from is that the name of the product line is Tool Fox. So many moons ago, about 13 moons ago, I was sitting around in the office chit-chatting with some colleagues, and we were talking about Halloween costumes. And I had made a comment to my friend that I had no idea what to dress up as for Halloween. And he turned and looked at me and he says, "Well, that's easy. You're the Tool Fox." And the name has stuck since.
That's great. What a great story. Okay, so Tool Fox, why don't we get stuck in and talk a little bit about Phoenix Contact and tools. Certainly, if I'm a listener here or a potential customer of TTI and Phoenix, what sort of things should I be considering when I'm actually shopping for industrial tooling?
There's a few different things. Obviously, whatever the job is that you're doing and what sort of connectors you're working with, but obviously the location of your job. Are you working at a workstation or are you working directly in a cabinet? Are you off-site? All those sort of things. And then looking at the particular tools, the ease of use, the ease of location use, any sort of power or air requirements. Safety features, required approvals, do you require a UL? And then lastly, of course, it's important to know what sort of warranties you might be looking for or you're interested in.
Just thinking about some of the tooling and the ranges you have, obviously, is there a point in time when I should be looking at moving from, say, a handheld tool to an automated tool?
Yeah, automated tools, of course, are going to help you when you need to increase your output. So you've got more work than you can handle manually. But one of the other big benefits to automated tooling is the fact that you get consistent results. So when you're using, say, for example, the CF3000, the automated wire stripping and crimping machine for ferrules, it's always going to strip the same amount off. It's always going to put the same ferrule on and crimp it the same way, giving you a solid connection. So automated tooling, if you need to increase your output, and then if you're having problems with inconsistencies on your shop floor.
Yeah, I guess that's a really good point, Maria, actually. There's always a level of user involvement when you're using a hand tool, and you're not guaranteed to get exactly the same output every time, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And it's the same thing that kind of applies with our hand tools. And if I'll just give you a little quick example, one of the most common types of wire strippers out there are like the scissor style, and they have nests or seats, if you will, for specific wire gauges. And so if you take a 16 gauge wire and you put it in the nest or the seat for an 18 gauge wire, it's going to bite in too hard and you're going to cut some of your fine strands. And I will completely admit that I do not come to work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and am completely focused on what exactly it is that I'm doing. So the chances of making errors or, as I said, putting the wire in the wrong seat could easily happen. And simple things like that down the road could affect your connection. So automated tooling eliminates that, as well as so does our hand tools. Our wire strippers are self-adjusting, so you don't have to think about which seat that it's going in, which makes things makes things easier.
Certainly, yeah. And I know if we're talking in the world of automated tooling, I know that Phoenix Contact have just released a new tool, a new fully automated tool. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, that is called the eFox S10, and it is a part of the E series with Phoenix Contact, but it is a automated wire stripping machine. We do currently have or had one, the WF1000, and that one was a little more manual. The eFox S10 is completely automated. It has a plug and play principle, has a inclined 5-inch touchscreen where you can do your adjustments with it, has LED signal lights, and it's got a quick cycle time under a second. Also enables different types or styles of stripping blades versus like a flat style, which is better for your softer insulations or your smaller wire gauges. And also you can put in a V-blade style, which is better for your tougher insulations or your larger gauges. But what's really, really cool about the machine is that there's different ways of communicating with it. As I mentioned, it has the 5-inch touchscreen display that you can enter your job requirements, but it also communicates with our ClipX Wire Assist software program. That software program also works with our CutFox 10, the wire cutting machine, also works with our printers. So you can communicate with the wire stripping machine via your laptop or via your computer through the ClipX software program. And then lastly, the eFox S10 can be operated using a barcode scanner. So if you have a shop where you're doing multiple different jobs of wire stripping, instead of each time that the job comes up, having to enter in the strip length desired, the pull length desired, the wire gauge that you're working with, you can set it up with barcodes and just scan a barcode and the machine will automatically adjust itself. It also, with that barcode system, can set up the favorites in the touch screen. So you can either enter your favorites and access that particular job with a favorites number via the touch screen, or you can set it up with a barcode scanner and then scan the job and the machine's automatically ready for the wire gauges or the wire job that you're working on right now.
So thanks for that, Maria. So there's a whole host of different inputs that an operator can use here to make their lives easier. I know also it comes with multiple different types of blades and even a custom option. Could you just expand on that a little bit for our listeners?
Yeah, it automatically comes with the V-blade in it. And V-blade is, if you think two Vs, one right side up, the other one upside down. So when it's coming down and cutting on a wire, it's cutting in 4 spots. And those are good for your tougher insulations or your larger wire gauges. There's also the option of the flat blade, which is generally kind of like a guillotine style. You got a blade on the bottom and a blade on the top. And that's better for your softer insulations and or your smaller wire gauges. Say, for example, the machine will do 28 to 8 gauge. Well, if you have a 28 gauge wire, you really don't want 4 blades coming down on it. You would want something that's a little bit more gentle on your wire. And then the last option is a custom blade. And what that is if the V blade or the flat blade is not working for the wire that you're working with, you can send us, you or the customer can send us the wire that they're working with, and I will forward that on to my colleagues in Germany, and they will design a blade around that wire that will work for the customer's wire.
So a lot of options there. So this tool really is the one size fits all with all the different variations that you can bring to play here. I know we talked a little bit in here about the Wire Assist software. Is that something you'd like to expand upon for our listeners?
Going back to the eFox, like I said, it's got different means of being able to talk to it. You can use the barcode scanner with the USB port in the back of the machine. You can talk to it via the screen, or you can talk to it via the ClipX Wire Assist software. And the software, the ClipX Wire Assist software, is a great software program that incorporates many of Phoenix Contact's wire processing equipment, and that's with the CutFox, the wire cutting machine, the eFox, as I said, but also with our E-Series printers. So in one workstation, they can design in this software the wire that they need. They need this wire to be so long, 17 inches in length. It's 14 gauge, 17 inches in length. They need a ferrule, an 8mm barrel ferrule on one side and a lug or whatever on the other side. And all that is programmed into this software. When you click on start, it will measure the wire and cut it. And then you can use the CF3000 with the machine to put a ferrule on one side, or if you're putting a lug on, you could use the eFox S10, and that will strip to the right length that is needed for you then to apply your lug on. And you can incorporate the CF500, which will crimp your lug. And then, of course, you've got the E-Series marking capabilities where you can then put a wire wrap on it and label your wire.
Thanks for that, Maria. There's a lot of options there, and I know that anything the customer needs in this area, then Phoenix Contact and TTI have got you covered. You did mention ferrules there, and it brings me to an interesting area for me personally, and I'm sure some of our listeners here, Maria, is that I'm never completely sure, never completely clear when I should be using, say, a bare wire, strip bare wire, be it stranded or solid, and when I should look at using a ferrule. I know you've recently done a presentation on ferrules and when they should be used. So why don't you sort of cover that for our listeners and really give us an idea of the types of applications, the types of wire, and the types of ferrules customers should be using, and when they should use them.
Well, if you ask me, I think you should always use ferrules. And the main reason, because it's protecting your bare strands. But most importantly, if you're using stranded wire, you should use ferrules because that protects your strands, protects the individual strands from being damaged. It enables you to insert your wire and, if need be, take it out and insert it somewhere else without worrying about damaging it. It also protects the strands or your wire when it's in its end application from wear and tear or external factors. So say, for example, your cabinet or your build is going on a train, and that train is going to go from New York to LA, and it's going to bounce its way across the country. Every time you bounce, every vibration is going to affect that connection. Well, putting a ferrule on is going to protect it. If you only have the fine strands unprotected, eventually vibration is going to cause them to crack. And you don't want that, of course, to happen on the train because that will affect the electrical connection. Also, thinking about a situation where, let's say that your end application is on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. Weather and waves and external factors are going to cause continual bumping or vibration on that equipment. Well, as that goes on, as time goes on, it's going to wear at your connection. Using a ferrule, again, protects your strands. And if your strands do break out there, do you really want to have to go out in the middle of the ocean to fix a ferrule or to fix one wire? So doing, as I always say, do the job right the first time, then you don't have to worry about those costly troubleshooting repairs down the road, whether they be on an oil rig or on a train.
That's some great points there, Maria. And certainly from my perspective and from what you've been saying there, if I'm using a stranded wire, it sounds like I should definitely be either 100% of the time using a ferrule, or certainly should be 100% of the time thinking about using a ferrule. Could you maybe just expand upon that for us a little bit?
Yes. So not all ferrules are manufactured the same. Most importantly, there is a step in manufacturing that is skipped by many manufacturers, and that is called annealing. And it is skipped because it requires time. And anytime that you add time to your manufacturing process, you're going to add cost. Well, with the annealing, what it does is it heats it up and then it heats the metal up and allows it to cool slowly, but it strengthens the material, it strengthens the metal, enables it to become a little more flexible, if you will, for those different situations that you might be in, like we were talking about earlier about the vibration on a train. So As I said, a lot of manufacturers skip that step, which reduces their manufacturing cost and therefore reduces the customer's cost. However, to skip that step makes the ferrule more brittle. And as I said before, do the job right the first time. Do you want to fix that ferrule or that wire connection in the shop when you're building the panel, or do you want to go out on that oil rig or chase that train down to fix your wire? So the annealing process is a very important step, and not all manufacturers do that. The other thing to think about with the different manufacturers is that the actual design of the ferrule is not always the same. And what I mean by that is when you're looking at the ferrule, if you look at it straight on, the angle from which the insulation comes down onto the barrel, sometimes the angle is different. So sometimes it comes down into more of a soft angle. Sometimes it's just a solid drop, more like a square type feel. And that's important mainly when you're using automated machines. A lot of times when customers call me and say, hey, Toolfox, I'm having an issue with this machine. I can't figure out what the problem is. One of the first questions I always ask them is, whose ferrules are you using? And it's not because I'm being a snob and say you have to use Phoenix Contact ferrules. It's because the design is different. So if the machine that you're using was designed around a specific ferrule, you can't swap different ferrules in there because the internal design of the machine, it was not created for that. So the big important things to look out for are the manufacturing design, but also the manufacturing steps. Are they quality ferrules?
And while we're talking about ferrules, and you make some great points there, Maria, I know a question that comes up often to TTI when we're talking about ferrules is there seems to be some confusion around the UL and how that relates to ferrules themselves. Maybe you could explain that for us.
And that's a question I get quite frequently as well. When you're talking about UL listed ferrules, customers, they say, well, so-and-so's ferrules are UL listed, or your ferrules are UL listed. Technically, no, but allow me to elaborate before everybody's eyebrows raise. The ferrule itself is not UL listed. It is the process of the ferrule with the crimper. So a specific ferrule with a specific crimper. The process of the two combined is what gives it UL. And the simplest way to think about that and keep that in your mind is that UL tested the process. They took one specific ferrule and tested it with one specific crimper. They didn't take one manufacturer's one manufacturer's ferrules and test it with all the different manufacturer crimpers out there. So the UL approval on the ferrule with UL is on the process itself. It's not the ferrule. And where that comes into play, and I don't want to throw out different names, however, you can't use Phoenix Contact ferrules with our competitors' crimpers and get UL. Even though our packaging has the UL symbol on it, the UL file itself on UL website will show you that it needs to be used with XYZ crimper. So you can't match ferrules, different manufacturer ferrules with different manufacturer crimpers.
Yeah, that's actually really good. As I said, we hear this from time and time again. It's one of those areas where I think sometimes people forget that it's the process versus just the product, particularly when you're looking at something like a crimp ferrule and going onto a cable. So I think that was a great point, well made, and appreciate that.
Sure, absolutely. It's the question I always get was, hey, Toolfox, your ferrules and your crimpers have UL, and so-and-so's ferrules and crimpers have UL. Why can't I mismatch them? I'm like, because UL didn't test them that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's an area that gets overlooked more and more. So that's a great place probably for us to wrap this particular session up. Well, thanks very much for your time, and thank you everybody for listening. So that was me, John Sandy from TTI, and Maria Schierscher from Phoenix Contact talking about tooling and ferrules, and ending up there with a very interesting note on the UL process. So
thank you.
Join us again in a coming Contact Point podcast, and we look forward to talking again soon. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you for joining us today on Contact Point. Keep up with the latest episodes on tti.com/podcasts.